Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Lisa T. Williams, author of The Write-In Wars. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me.
Well, we are looking forward to having you on today. Are you ready to get started?
Yes, I am.
All right. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Well, there is actually no single piece of advice that I give, but the first thing I would probably say is just write. Just write it first and get an editor. I mean, I believe the best writers need editors. I mean, everybody needs an editor. So don't think about it. Don't put it off. Write it and then make sure you have an editor.
I agree with you completely. I think the two most important part of a book is, one, having a great looking cover, but the second thing is having a great editor. Invest in editing. Editor. Do not do it yourself. Pay someone to clean it up.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I was told I was a great writer, but even and I can edit for other people.
Yes.
But I need an editor as well. So I just think that's so important.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I can catch any mistakes off of anyone else's work, but on my own, I'm too connected to it, and I know I'm going to miss those things.
Exactly.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
You know, I've had this question asked of me at different meetings and conferences and forums I go to, and my answer is always the same. And it doesn't, sometimes it rubs people the wrong way, but I'm just very transparent and honest. I think that the publishing industry, especially the traditional publishing industry, has become very elitist.
Yep. And
it's very hard for your average unknown to get noticed in the traditional publishing industry. And even when we do, the companies just don't put behind people like, you know, an everyday Joe, or what they put behind a well-known person or someone who's highly connected. So that is our first barrier. But otherwise, I just really don't think it's very difficult anymore because, I mean, I did it myself. And while I'm not getting filthy rich from it, my books have touched a lot of lives. And ultimately, I just feel that was the point, to share my stories with other people. You know, so, you know, it just kind of depends on what you want out of it. But traditional publishing is difficult. You got to be willing to accept rejection. You have to be willing to put the work in and figure out what are they looking for. And you have to be the kind of person who conforms because they're generally looking about the same time for something that's trending at the time. And so no matter how good or unique what you wrote may be, it might not get noticed unless you're, you know, already in that elitist group.
Yeah, and for those that want to take this journey themselves, if they really want to try things out, I mean, you've got to have a great editor. You have to have an awesome formatter. You have to have a book cover designer that knows what they're doing. And don't just utilize friends and family. Go out there and find freelancers. Go to Fiverr. Go to Upwork. Because that's how I started. You know, I self-published my first book 4+ years ago. And I, put the time in. Did a lot of research. Found an amazing core team that several of those people we still work with to this day. But you have to be able to invest. And again, you want to do it yourself, fine. But find a good cover designer. Find a formatter. Find an editor.
I actually went out and outsourced the things that I couldn't do myself. Like to this day, I still work with my first cover designer. Like she's amazing. And she actually used to work in the traditional publishing industry. And she retired. And so when she retired, she picked up a few authors and she still does our covers for us and everything. And so she's connected. So if we wanted to get into the traditional, with her being connected, we probably could get our foot in the door through her. But, you know, I really like working with her. I like doing this. And so it just depends on what you want out of it. But everything that you said is definitely true because, you know, if you want to, like I tell people, you want to run with the big boys, you got to put the same amount of work in.
Exactly. Or utilize someone that does the best of both worlds. Utilize a hybrid company or even a
Exactly.
vanity one, but use someone or even a coach, but have someone there that can
Exactly.
help you with this journey because I truly believe now it is harder than ever to publish your own book, going down the self-publishing route without help. And just having someone
Without
there
help.
to
Oh, yeah.
guide you because Amazon's made it harder than ever with since they
Yes,
absorb
they
create
have.
space, they've gotten very picky about things. It's one of those things where if they reject your cover, then you need to be able to work with someone who knows how to get that cover approved because you might just get
Exactly.
discouraged and choose to go in a different direction.
Hmm. Hmm. That's definitely true. And I've seen a lot of authors go down that road and get discouraged and say, oh, well, and they started something that could have been like an awesome project. But then at the end of the day, they got discouraged and they gave up. And so that's one of the things that I try to do is encourage them to, you have to stay with it. You have to make sure you do the research. You have to make sure you meet the specs, and, you know, my advice has always been if you're going to do something, give it 150%. And so,
Yep.
you just, but like you said, they need people to mentor them and guide them. I had that. I was very blessed to have that, but I went in and sought those circles out. I sought people who had been in the industry for a while who could answer my questions. I did what I had to do, but you're right. You do know that there's so many good venues out there now that you can go to for answers and get help from. So yeah, I don't really find it as difficult depending on what you want. If you want traditional, that may be a little hard. But if you want to self-publish, there's a lot of ways out there to self-publish and avenues that you can go through and to get help with publishing.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share
Hmm.
a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked
Okay.
well.
Well, I have one way of marketing that's a unique way of marketing. And I'm often asked to speak a great deal. But I only choose to accept speaking gigs in which my message and my book fit and can be the theme of my speech. So I have a message that like resonates in all of my writing, and it has to ultimately lead to the speech being encouraging, inspiring, ultimately stressing being kind to one another, kind of the general message. And in that, in those speaking engagements, I always plug my books in the speech and the story behind how I started writing. And honestly, that gets people to searching for me and buying my books. So that's one way I do it. But generally, what I do is I just use social media. I use everything that's free to me on social media. I use Goodreads. I use Facebook, a bit of Instagram. That doesn't work for me so much. Maybe it works for other people. I use Reader's Favorite. I always tell people they can get a free review. And if you get 4 stars or better, they'll provide you with, they'll give you the review and you can put it all over your social media site. And you can post the positive reviews and people will start to notice it. But I also create my own book commercials. I use PowerPoint and I basically use images and pictures and I convert it. I add music. I turn it into an MP3 and I post it on my social media sites. And so it's like a book commercial. It kind of almost like a trailer and it's telling you what the book is about. And when a book is coming out. So when I have a new book coming out, I might do a book commercial. When I release it, I might do a book commercial. And, those are the kind of things I do. I work really hard. Like when I'm getting ready to release a book, I do everything I can on the front end. And I do all the free things that I can to create traffic towards my website. So, it's so many ways to create free traffic. And you should always try those first, especially if you don't have the advertising dollars or the money. And you try the free traffic stuff first. And that's worked pretty good for me. And then book giveaways on Amazon and Goodreads and things like that.
So, what exactly is Reader's Favorite?
Okay, so readersfavorite.com, it is it's a website for writers, and they will give you self-published, and they're really great. They have a book contest every year. You do not have to enter the book contest to be a part of it, but you can just submit your book to Reader's Favorite and tell them that you want a review. Now, if you get the free review, it takes time to, it takes about 4 or 5 weeks to get it back, but it's a free review. They don't know you from Adam. And they give very honest reviews. I've done 5 stars on all of my books that I've submitted. I've submitted 4 separate books, and I've got 5 stars every time someone's reviewed them. When I released the Writing Wars, I actually got the free review, and I did 2 paid reviews. But the person doesn't know you. I mean, the people that are reviewing you have no idea who you are. It's blind. It's done blind. and they review your book, and I got 5 stars on all 3 of those too. Those are really good marketing tools to use, and they're not expensive reviews. I mean,
So you
not at all.
paid
I
for
can't
the
recall
review.
exactly.
You paid for the other
I
reviews.
I paid for the second 2. The first one was free.
Okay. And what did they charge for
But
that?
all my other books I did free. Huh?
What did they charge for a
I
review?
can't recall exactly. I want to say that it cost about $30 for a review.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, but I do know authors who have sent their books in for reviews and didn't get 4 or 5 stars. So it's very fair. But they don't post the negative reviews. They only put the books that get featured are the books who receive 4 or 5 stars.
You also mentioned that you created little, I guess, commercial graphics on social media through
Yeah.
PowerPoint, correct?
Yes, I did. I do. You can go in PowerPoint, and all you have to do is I create my PowerPoint slides. I put my voice to the slides. I put music behind them, and then I convert it to an MP4. I'm sorry. I convert it to an MP4, and when you can post it as a video on like Facebook. And I actually did it for the Writing Wars when I was getting ready to release it. It's like coming soon, and it was like it's so cool, And I was like, wow, there's so much you can create with just basic Microsoft program. And so I've taught myself how to do so much just using a basic Microsoft program. And it's quality video. It's actually quality video.
So essentially you're creating social media videos with PowerPoint.
Exactly. I'm creating social media videos with PowerPoint, mostly using like images and animation. But I mean, even if I did my own video, I could actually inject that video into the PowerPoint. PowerPoint has so many capabilities now that it's just like having an editing program. You can even edit PowerPoint now.
Well, speaking of books, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was like, it's fairly easy. Yeah, that's all I was going to say.
Excellent. Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Okay. So, see, that depends on what genre you're asking about.
Any.
I love novels, and I love novels that cross genres, the ones that you kind of can't place into a single genre. And I would say that I have a favorite author. He's a Christian or spiritual, whatever you want to call him. His name is Ted Dekker. And he has these amazing novels that fit action, adventure, spirituality, fantasy, science fiction, romance, and even self-help. When I was a little girl, my favorite author was this lovely lady named Lois Duncan. And she's not really known, but many of her novels actually made it to the big screen in the 90s. They tended to be kind of like horror flicks. But when I was in undergraduate school, when I was in high school, it became the classics like Charles Dickens, a lot of his things. And I liked his stuff because the underlying themes helped in some way to develop my moral compass to this day. But then there's James Redfield, the Celestine Prophecy, however you say it. And but the theme in all those novels, the reason why I mention all of those is because they all some kind of way taught us about how we should treat each other. Or kind of guide our lives and, help us make the right decisions in life. So I like books that entertain me, but also teach me something. I have to get a lesson out of it. Like I said, I read everything. I read everything from classics to Tolkien. I love J.R. Tolkien. I mean, I read everything. I read self-help books. I love this self-help person named Brandon Bouchard, I want to say. He wrote the Millionaire Messenger. So I read everything.
Well, I love you mentioned the Celestine Prophecy. I read that book probably in the 1990s, and then the sequel to
Yes, I did too.
Yeah,
that book kind of guided me, and it helped me. I read it in the 90s when I was in my 20s, and in my early 20s, and I wanted to. It helped me to grow up. It taught me how to be around positive people, positive energy, how to be around like-minded people, and it was an action adventure book. But I learned all of that from the Celestine Prophecy. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember both the Celestine Prophecy and the Celestine Vision. And if I remember correctly, there was actually a movie that was made. I think it was more of a low-budget movie, but they actually made a movie about the Celestine Prophecy.
the movie kind of ruined the book for me.
Yeah, they tend to do that.
But I still have the book on my shelf, and they actually came out with sequels to that. I followed the one that came out after Celestine Prophecy was the 10th Insight.
Yep.
And then the 11th Insight came out as well, and then there was some other books that stemmed off from the story. But yeah, I love James Redfield, and he had a story behind that book that I share with people when I speak. And it's that he wrote the book, he self-published, and he didn't market it. He gave the book away, and the only contingency he said was, when you finish it, share it. So when the Celestine Prophecy got in my hands, it was because someone said, I want you to read this. And so I was a part of that when you finish it, share it thing. And it was years later. It was years after he had released it. So I think that, and it's still one of New York Times bestsellers. So he never marketed the Celestine Prophecy. He just kind of put it out there and said, sell it. And it made New York Times, said, share it. And it made New York Times bestseller.
Well, for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Okay, so if you look up my books, my name is Lisa T. Williams, but under my books, I write in the pseudonym MJ Logan. And so MJ Logan has her own quote, and Lisa Williams has her own quote. And as MJ Logan, my quote is, truly learning who we are, accepting others for who they are, becoming all we can be, and using our unique gifts for a common cause is how we are meant to live. And that is the theme in most of my books I write. And as Lisa T. Williams, I am a doctor of nursing practice, and I'm also a professor, and I believe in helping people reach their goals and their dreams. And I believe that I love helping others discover and realize their dreams, set goals, and discover their true potential, because it is the purest and most honest way to express who I am. So those are my two quotes that guide my life.
Well, Lisa, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show today. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Well, people can find me at www.mjlogan.net. They can also find me at facebook.com/MJLogan8149. But I'm also on Reader's Favorite. I'm on Amazon. I have an author page. And when you go to the other websites looking for me, you just have to put in the name of my books. And because there's a lot of MJ Logans. But if you put in Lisa Williams, sometimes I pop up as well.
Well, Lisa, thank you once again for being on the show. And I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.